Hi, this is Paisley.
And this is Dr. Crow.
And today we are talking about our 3 favorite new features in Civ 7.
Yeah, and so we wanted to make this video because we got a lot of really engaging and thoughtful comments.
Yeah.
But we did notice some people thought maybe we're just going to be like super critical. And I promise you, we're going to have fun with this game.
There was one comment that I think captured our tone much better, which I thought was really hilarious. They said I'm glazing for Axis, and I did have to look that up, but I really hope it's visions of donuts, not anything untoward with the word glazing. But I'm sorry to that person. You're just gonna get a lot more glazing in this episode.
Let's get glazed, yeah.
Oh my god. So in this video, we're going to start off with just a little bit of background, what brought us to playing Civ and what we really love about it. And then in the second part, we're gonna list the 3 things we're really excited about seeing in Civ 7.
Yeah, so I started with Civ 3. That was my first Civ.
Wow. Dr. Crow dating himself.
Yeah, I just loved having this huge breadth of civilization. Civ 3 also had like the Hittites in there. You had a whole bunch of Civs that haven't made an appearance again, actually. If you look at the Civs that have already been confirmed for Civ 7, you have alongside Rome and Egypt, you have Aksum, Shawnee, Abbasid. So you're really getting like a really interesting mix of civilization.
Yeah, and I'm really interested in some of the things I've seen for the Songhai. And if you follow me on Twitter, I actually want to claim that I found ancient Persia in the gameplay trailer. So I'm pretty sure we're going to get ancient Persia, or as someone said, it should be ancient Iran unless you're an illiterate Greek, which I thought was like such a deep cut insult that I just couldn't block him. I was like, that's a really good historical insult to call you an illiterate Greek for calling it Persia. That was great. But yeah, for me, just in general, Civ has always been this perfect storm of gaming and history that I've always been really interested in. But I think Civ 5 really brought to my attention just my passion and obsession with history. But I just remember there was this absolutely magical feeling I had when the Civ leaders came on screen and they would all talk in their native language. And of course, there's some inaccuracies that, you can look up online. There's some grammatical errors, especially with some of the older and less spoken languages. But, I didn't know that. And I was just so enthralled by listening to especially Attila the Hun speak.
Right.
I knew nothing about Attila the Hun besides he was sort of an antagonizer.
A barbarian,
right? And having him as a civilization in Civ 5, I started going on Wikipedia and learning more about this language that he's speaking, Chuvash. And I was just like watching obsessively YouTube videos of like music in this language. So yes, it is just a game, I agree, but it is such a magical game and such a window for people. And I think a lot of us are going to be older Civ heads. I saw my demographics. A lot of us are 35 plus. Right. But for those younger players, this could be a window to them learning about their passion for history.
And so this brings us to our very first of the 3 things we're really excited about for Civ 7. And that is actually the barbarian mechanic. Barbarians have always been in the game, but here they're now finally updating it into independent powers, independent civilizations. And I think it's going to add a really new dynamic to the game.
Yeah, I think the words I've seen on screen are just independence, but people have been using the word independent peoples or independent city-states. It's not exactly clear what the wording is going to be. And I believe this is the first time we don't really have a barbarian unit in the game. Now, let's go a little bit back into the history. So Civ 1, 5, and 6 have generic barbarians. They're not tied to any cultural groups.
Right. But in Civ 2, they added in, kind of hidden in the game, different names of peoples that were barbarians. In Civ 2, it's basically who you would expect according to kind of like Roman history. So people like the Huns or the Goths are in that kind of barbarian list.
But then in Civ 3 and 4, they expand this list to have a more global scope. And I think a lot of people have pointed out there's a lot of problematic thinking that went into making this list. A lot of native tribes are considered barbarians, but not all. Like, for example, the Hittites, I believe, are barbarians, the Mayans, Sumeria, civilizations that are civs in the game. By thinking through these problems, by every iteration of Civ, thinking about, well, what is it that we're trying to convey with this group? I believe it just improves gameplay. Now, no one's going to get it perfect, but I do think that sort of active reflecting can make games better. And that's what we see here in Civ 7.
Having this new mechanic makes it more strategic, but also I think better actually reflects history.
Exactly. I think we're just getting two great outcomes, better reflection of history and great gameplay, which is, I think, the best of both worlds of Civ. I think everyone who's played Civ 7 has mentioned they much prefer this system over the Civ 6 one. And, there's a few reasons I've seen pointed out. One is it's a lot of RNG. If you just roll a bad start with lots of barbarians, that ruins the entire game. Here, the independent peoples, you have a lot more strategic control over, so it makes the game a lot more dynamic. And secondly, it shows the depth of research that the developers have gone to include specific groups and not just something generic, right? So there are 4 groups that they've confirmed already.
The Magyars, we have the Slavs, we have the Mishteks, and we have the Soninke.
Right. And so all of these are kind of from different parts of the world. We're not exactly sure what era each one of these groups will be in. For example, the Magyars and the Slavs kind of border antiquity or exploration age based on how we see them defining it.
And we don't quite know who in the modern age is going to be an independent civ. States that are important, but not important enough to be like huge civilizations. Like Singapore is an important country in the world, but you can't have a Singaporean empire because it's just one city, right?
Right. So I think it's the amalgamation of the city-state mechanic and the barbarian mechanic and sort of kind of getting rid of this ideology of barbarian altogether, but keeping some of the gameplay of Civ 6 that was attached to them. And I know the developers have mentioned that the barbarian clans mode was kind of a soft launch for the independence people. So there is some continuity, but it does seem like city-state mechanic is also a major part of independent peoples on the map. For example, you can become their suzerain, and then you can also annex them.
And so our second feature that we're really looking forward to is actually related to this, and that's the detail that they're going into with the art style.
Yeah, for me, the first thing I noticed was the vernacular architecture. Just for those of you that don't know, vernacular architecture is basically the architecture made by people for their daily needs, so homes, markets. And this is what got me so excited. For example, Songhai is just seeing the attention to detail, to the material.
For sure. I mean, we saw with the Songhai that they have tried to, sometimes do things a bit imaginatively, but still kind of show all the buildings reflect that kind of mud brick architecture. Usually in West African mud brick architecture, you have kind of pieces of wood that come out that act as scaffolding because you need to remodel the architecture quite often. And we see that in the buildings they have there. So they've really kind of given great attention to these kind of very small details.
Yeah, and I think the districts will also have a lot of attention paid to your civilization's aesthetic and culture and reflect that uniquely in every district, and that is just wonderful to see. It's going to make the game more beautiful, but it's also going to help with immersion. I know some people are kind of worried about the busyness that's going to happen on their screen, but I mean, I thought it was really nice. And so let's go to our third favorite feature that we see in Civ 7, the civics tree or the tech tree that's unique to every civilization. Now, I believe they've all been listed on their website for the ones that they've revealed so far.
Right, so there seems to be about 3 civics per civ, and you unlock them, and they each give you bonuses towards that civ's abilities. And again, I think this is an interesting way of not just having civs be static, but having their abilities evolve over time. And also, again, really kind of emphasizing uniqueness of civs as a gameplay mechanic.
Yeah, so I guess what they're kind of doing is taking those bonuses and they're putting it behind unlocking technology. That's going to be a really interesting addition to the game. So I'm not quite sure how it's going to work out. Are these sort of taken away and irrelevant in the next era? I assume the tree grows with your next civ pick, right? I don't think they're going to erase everything you've invested so far.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's a great way of showing what their goal is, which is that you're not switching civs, you're layering your civilization. And this is one way you can use the gameplay to show your philosophy of history.
So one example we know is you can go from Rome to Normandy, right? And of course, the Normans, when they have their system of law, they have their systems of governance, they're also building on Roman traditions. They're building on Roman law.
Right, as some people will say, the Normans did not fall out of a coconut tree. For us, I think that's just such an interesting question of how are you going to show history while making a fun, interesting game? And I'm going to glaze Firaxis here a little bit. To take your philosophy of history, your view of it, and then to kind of morph it into the way you click on a screen and move through a game, that is something really difficult to do. And I think Firaxis has continuously improved their vision of this. And I believe they will do so in Civ 7 as well. But that, of course, remains to be seen.
And then we should add one last thing that we're very excited about.
Yeah, bonus fourth thing.
Bonus fourth thing, and that is, of course, the addition of camels.
I love camels. Yeah. I am so excited for camels. They are the single humped camel. I wonder if they're going to include the 2 or the 1.5 humped camel.
Well, that's a DLC.
The DLC 1.5 humped
DLC.
camel. Imagine if it's like camel mating.
$15.
You know, settlers are riding in on camels. Camels make a huge appearance.
Maybe llamas too.
And I do want to say, like, our wish list was pretty accurate
Pretty
here.
good.
We said no barbs. And we're the only ones, I think, that predicted no barbs.
And I think the emphasis on natural events, natural disasters,
That was a
foreseeable.
given. That was very foreseeable, yes.
But we'll take it.
We'll take it. We said that one too.
Yeah.
So those are our favorite things. Leave in the comments what are some of your favorite things. If you want to share your least favorite things, I think that would be maybe a different video. We are going to come up with like hot takes on hot topics.
Right. Ages, I think, is going to be a big one.
Ages, I think, will be a big one. But for this one, we want to keep it light and positive. And thank you all for subscribing. We definitely passed our goal for 2024. And that's it. We're done. We're just doing this for fun now.
All right. See you next time.
Bye.